You got a choice between Sleepy Joe and Crazy Bernie. You have a young man, Boot Edge Edge. Boot Edge Edge. They say Edge Edge. He's got a great chance, doesn't he? He'll be great. He'll be great. Representing us against President Xi of China. That'll be great.
The race is on as 22 Democrats vie for the right to face off against US President Donald Trump. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. It's beginning to heat up. A diverse field of nearly 24 Democrats are often running for the right to challenge a Republican president mired in investigations, a trade war with China, and an approval rating hovering in the mid-40s. With the first Democratic debate set for next month, we're seeing all the makings of a dramatic year in U.S. politics. For more, we turn now to CGTN's Nathan King, who's at the White House. And Nathan, break it down for us. Who are some of the leading contenders, on the Democrat side, of course, and what are some of the key issues?
Yeah, I'm not going to list them all because it's 22 or more than we've had in all Democratic presidents sitting in the White House in the history of the United States. But the front runners, well, let's leave Joe Biden out. But before Joe Biden came in about 3 weeks ago, essentially we saw the front runners, Bernie Sanders, remember, who challenged Hillary Clinton back in 2016. Kamala Harris, a senator from California, former prosecutor, African-American, very strong standing. Elizabeth Warren, who, of course, is a champion of the middle class and consumers, and during the financial crisis came to the fore, a senator there. And then the name that Donald Trump was having trouble with is Pete Buttigieg. It's a Maltese name, and he's a mayor from South Bend, Indiana, very young, in his 30s, but incredibly intelligent guy, speaks several languages, but many people consider him to be young. We also have Beto O'Rourke, who nearly beat Ted Cruz in the senatorial race in Texas last time around. But essentially, when Joe Biden, the former vice president to Barack Obama here, and his run before for president, entered the race, all bets were off. Because I can tell you, in the last week or two, we've seen him develop a lead in some of the early primary states. Remember the primaries before we get to the general election, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, etc. He's about 10 to 20% ahead. So it's really his race to win at the moment. And the reason is, well, people know who he is. He's also a working class guy, or at least seems like it. He talks about unions, he talks about good jobs, essentially can take Trump on in the states he won, like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, took those away from Democrats. Let's hear him now on the stump.
We are in a battle. We are in a battle for America's soul. Donald Trump is the only president who's decided not to represent the whole country. The president has his base. We need a president who works for all Americans. We Democrats and we independents who have the same view have to choose hope over fear, unity over division, and maybe most importantly, truth over lies. Truth over lies.
Truth over lies. He's not afraid to go after the US President Trump, but also takes him on his own terms, you know, talks about the average American, making America great, but in a different way. Very interesting. And US President Trump has taken notice. He's been tweeting largely only about Joe Biden. He calls him Sleepy Joe. Remember how he makes up all these nicknames for his opponents? That so far hasn't stuck, but you can tell this White House, this president, is more worried about taking on Joe Biden than the rest of the candidates so far.
So, Nathan, beside the tweets and calling people names, what kind of a campaign can we expect from President Trump?
Well, I think you're right to say that, because remember, that's what happened last time. And as you see, the president is as combative as he was when he was first running for office. So do expect that, and do expect it to be a pretty nasty campaign, although we have all these primaries to go through, don't we? But at the moment, look at the US economy. It's doing really well. I mean, the unemployment figures are just incredible. And the president keeps on pushing this theme. Let's take a listen.
We have the most number of people working in the United States that we have ever had at any time in the history of our country. Almost 160 million people are working. So that's a big number. I just saw the final number. We're close to 160 million people If you look at African American, Asian, Hispanic unemployment, it's the lowest number it's ever been. So we're doing really well, and all the Democrats want to do is find any way they can to stop it. They're putting their own personal goals ahead of the country, and you can't do that.
So President Trump touting the economy there. The thing is, the economy could change. We could be at the top of a cycle right now. It could change by 2020, especially if the trade war continues. And expect that as well. You know, China featured quite heavily in the last campaign. You could expect it to also feature heavily in this campaign as well, especially even if trade wars are done. As you know, there are other differences with China and the US at the moment. And immigration, of course, is going to be key for the US president. He thinks it turns out the base, despite all the controversies about splitting families up at borders and the Muslim ban and all these sorts of things. He thinks it turns out the base. But don't expect it to be a calm race for the highest, most dignified office in the land. It's going to be a very, very tough one indeed.
Thanks, Nathan. That's CGTN's Nathan King reporting from the White House.